I would like you to sing along with me.
I see some people fanning themselves. I think it's because they feel the fire of the Holy Spirit, no? Thank you very much. Let's have applause for our dancing missionaries. Not sure how much time I have. Okay, I have permission to do another. So for now, I'm not going to make you stand again. Not for now. Just take a deep breath. In the Diocese of Caguas, there is a young person named Emiliano del Ramos, and he has a special gift that the Lord gave him, and it is that he can compose songs. So he does that for. We have a song about the missionary church. So I know you don't know the words yet, but I'd like to share with you the song that he wrote. It is called "Let's Walk Together as a Missionary Church." the wave. Okay, wave from where to where? Okay, we're going to start on that side. 1, 2, 3. Did you have lunch? What was up with that wave? It kind of seems like they're stuck to their seats with Velcro. Something's going on. All right, so from my right to my left on three. 1, 2, 3. All right, that was like a wave. Let's hope that that was also a wave of the Holy Spirit that has brought us to this island of enchantment, as it's known. Thank you very much for being here with us. We are in the Bishop Vicente Murga Theater. Thank you to all of you for being here with us. As our what did he say? America. They've said that there are more or less 400 people here, but I feel like I only heard 20. I'm just wondering if you're all actually here. Let's see. People are just kind of coming in. I think that's what's going on. Okay, America with the power of the Spirit. Witnesses to Christ. Okay, now they're actually here. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to this missiological reflection in Ponce, Puerto Rico. We send greetings to all of our brothers and sisters that are connecting online through social media. Good afternoon once again, and thank you very much for being here. You tell the person sitting next to you, it's so good that you made it. It's so good that you're here. But make sure that you greet someone that you haven't greeted yet today from a different delegation, from a different country. Tell them. Wonderful. All right, so you've introduced yourselves, but I haven't introduced myself. My name is Kenia Gomez Rivera. I am a layperson from the Diocese of Fajardo here in Puerto Rico. So, to be able to continue in syntony with the Spirit this afternoon, what would you think about doing the prayer? Let's stand. So, don't worry because I'm going to be projecting it here for you. So, for those of you who have a different language, well, you can listen along. Let's say it all together. O merciful Father, who revealed in your Son the good news announced in these lands of America by so many missionaries, with words and with acts, help us to rediscover our vocation of baptized people, to give a new impulse to our proclaimed missionary action like them, the joy of the evangelists. O Lord, uh, who puts forth the Holy Spirit to renew on the face of the earth, injured by injustice and suffering, give us strength to walk as the people of God in synodality and mutual listening towards the next missionary American Congress, witnessing together the love that conquers the world. O Lord, our Lord and Father, who chose Mary as the model of evangelization to offer Christ to all of humanity, make it so that imitating your example of delivery sustained by your maternal provident care, that we may always be missionary disciples to the ends of the earth. Amen. You can take your seats. So let's keep in mind the following this afternoon. So we are in the Bishop Vicente Muerga Theater. Check your card because today in the afternoon we should have the members from the yellow group. We've got everyone in the yellow group. If you don't have the yellow card, then you're welcome, but you are missing the group where you were supposed to be. Anyways, welcome to everyone who is just arriving. If you're lost and you need help, you can go up to one of the volunteers in this room. We have simultaneous interpretation, so you need to put on your headsets and choose the correct channel to listen to the language of your choice. So technology is joining up with the strength of the spirit, no? Now, let's just remember once more that in this space, we are not to consume any food or drinks. If you would like to consume food or drinks, then you have to take a step outside. The bathrooms are in the hallway. To avoid untimely interruptions, please make sure that your cell phones are on silent mode or on vibrate. We would also like to say that during this conversation, we will have two different times for Q&A with the audience. So at that point, you'll be able to ask the speakers questions. If you would like to ask a question, you can go up to one of the two microphones that are located on the floor. We've got them at the end of the little aisles here. But you can also write down your question so that uh, or it would be a good idea to write down your question so that when you come up to the mic, you'll be able to pose your question more concisely. It's very important for the questions to be brief so that everyone will have time to speak and to be heard. So, for that reason, the time for questions will be limited. We appreciate your collaboration. So, now we're going to look at what our journey has been thus far. So, our topic, evangelizers with the Spirit to the ends of the earth. The slogan is America with the power of the Spirit, witnesses to Christ. The biblical text is you will receive the power of the Holy Spirit that will come over you, and you will be my witnesses to the ends of the earth. And the general objective is to propel with new ardor the Agentis mission of the church, walking together, listening. To the Spirit to be witnesses in faith, Jesus Christ, in the reality of our peoples to the ends of the earth. The thematic axis today is well, yesterday we talked about being propelled by the Spirit. There was a discussion, a conversation, a spiritual conversation. I think it was a very enriching. No, yes or no? Yes. Okay, so we hope to have another enriching opportunity today, but in the framework of a different topic, witnesses to Christ. So, yesterday, when we were having our dialogue, we were looking at how our brothers and sisters, talked about their witness and their missionary vocation, and we're going to be hearing more challenges today in their formation and so on. So, if you would like to know what happened yesterday, you can watch it on social media. It's available to you there. This afternoon, we will have a conversation on the Agentis, where Agentis missionaries will be sharing uh, the challenges that they have experienced and the ways in which they have been able to overcome them. So, for this dialogue, we will have as moderators Father Jorge Cardona from Caguas, Puerto Rico, priest of the diocese there, and also Sister Regina Agosta, Director of Pontifical Missionary Societies in Brazil. We would also we will also have with us Emilio and Maria Belen who are members of the Theological Commission of CAM6, who will be there to listen and take notes during this dialogue and on formation and spirituality. Uh, so I would like to introduce our guests. We have Maria Luisa Messina from the Philippines, a missionary, uh, Vercunde, and she has been so for the past 39 years, as she told us this morning. And she has been a missionary in the Philippines, Spain, Mexico, and Puerto Rico. We also have Juanita Madrigal Valencia, who is a Xavier and a missionary and has been so since 1984. She's been in Mexico with the Nahuatl indigenous people, and she has also been at the University in Rome and a period of formation in New York, and went to Thailand in 2002, and went back to Mexico 15 years later to found the mission in that country. We also have um, a couple, so Emilio and Maria Belen, pneumatologist. They have worked together in Golan, Africa, and they are both missionaries. They have worked in oral indigenous communities in India. They're currently in Argentina, in the province of Formosa. They are serving communities of different indigenous communities. They are both teachers of missionary spirituality, uh, diocesan delegates, agentes for the Pontifical Missionary Societies of Argentina. We also have Father Jose Guadalupe Martinez, who is a Mexican priest. He's been sent to Africa, to Kenya, the country with the most beautiful name in the world, where he did his studies in theology. Um, and he has worked with the Maasai communities and then with the poorest populations in the Kibera neighborhood of Nairobi. From 2014 to 2019, he worked in the Archdiocese for the deaf community in Nairobi. In 2021, he became the General Counselor for Missionaries of Guadalupe and the Director of Evangelization. And lastly, last but not least, Ana Ivelis Rodriguez Luis from Yauco, Puerto Rico, missionary from the Via Regla missionary community for the past 26 years. 5.5 years ago, she was sent by her community to lead the mission in Burkina Faso, Africa, and also Cote d'Ivoire, Peru, Bolivia, Mexico, Italy, and Puerto Rico, other places where she has worked. Good afternoon. America, with the power of the Spirit, witnesses to Christ. This group is the Santa Teresita of Jesus group. So, Santa Teresita de Jesus, with the power of the Spirit, witnesses to Christ. In addition to giving a witness this afternoon, sharing experiences, I would just like to highlight the presence of 5 brothers who have helped us out from the Secretariat from the Diocese of Caguas: Jose Luis, Jean Manuel, Ambar, Miguel, and Sandra. They are collecting the results of the questions, the challenges, and the proposals that are being put forth in this Congress. Today, we're going to be dealing with a topic that is quite complex, because sometimes it's easy to talk about the experience of the vocational call, and sometimes it's quite easy to talk about it. But today, we're going to be dealing with 2 topics that are important in the missionary process. And we want to talk about well, we want them to be able to, tell us their experience. It is a conversation. We want participation. Um, it's between them, among themselves, and also with all of you. So we have a question. We're going to be talking about formation, accompaniment. We're going to start with formation. So this is the question. This is the question. Let's see. How did you prepare yourself to live the experience of being a witness to Christ? So, how did you prepare yourself to do this in the missionary space? What was the biggest challenge of that formative experience, and how were you able to overcome it? So, we're going to begin with Sister Juanita. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome. My name is Juanita. I'm Mexican. Formation for missionaries. Well, I believe that it begins in the family. All of the practical preparation that a missionary needs in a missionary land, it comes from our family. That's the first thing. uh, Even planting an avocado tree in the mission, that's important. Hammering a nail, knowing how to repair fix a flat tire, for example, that's essential during the mission. So the things that you need to learn, well, that begins in everyone's family life. It's important also to study at the university level. You can't show up at the mission with nothing. You need to be based on something to be able to give some kind of service to society. You could be a teacher, a nurse. It could be whatever God inspired you to do, but it should be a degree. You need to have a degree, because in a country that isn't Christian, your degree speaks volumes. You can't say, I'm a Catholic person and I've come to preach. Well, no, it doesn't work that way. So in many countries, you present yourself with the profession that you have. So you're going there saying that you're going to offer some kind of social service. That's the most important thing for us. So, but also having a professional career is important. Another part of the formation of a missionary to be a witness in another country is the biblical theological formation. Because if you are going to announce, you know, it is essential to be very well prepared to do this. Also, for the interreligious dialogue. Another additional characteristic that I would add for missionaries, but this is really a product of the mission itself, is the ability of the missionary to admire the other culture. So once you learn the language of the other culture, the other country where you've gone, admire what they are, all of the positive things that the culture has. This is extremely important, because if our missionary life is based on the negative side of things, then you will end up completely thwarted in your mission. However, if you are able to look at the culture and admire it, and at the same time love it, then it will become a positive experience that you are taking to that country. All right. Well, that's interesting, because here we have a lot of different experiences, different states of life. We have, a nun, the presbyterate. We have a couple, married couple. So that's also about your, personal life. But how did you prepare yourselves for the mission? Hello. Good afternoon. Well, I agree. We agree with our sister in that the first place is family. So a lot of what you do in your mission are the things that you learned with your family, with your friends over the course of your life. So I would like to just divide things into three different points. As was said today in the presentation, we went under as volunteers to the Republic of India. And the first thing, speaking of the challenge, when we presented our letter to offer ourselves to the mission, they sent us to India. And I said, okay, it's a different continent, it's a new culture, new language. So that was a huge challenge for us. It's a beautiful experience, it's a beautiful country. And so that first impact, when we realized where we were going, it was about, getting information on the country because, of course, there wasn't anyone from Argentina who had gone to India. So we had to find information about, where could we learn about the culture, the language, and so on, all kinds of things. We were lucky to have the congregation from Santa Ana from India, and so we were able to go to them and ask for help with the language. So we studied for at least 8 months or so before we traveled. So we were studying Hindi, and another language that they speak there quite a lot is English, which we more or less spoke. One of the challenges that we had was when they sent us to the first place of mission, they spoke Marathi. So it was the state of Maharashtra, and they spoke a different language. So the basic knowledge that we had of Hindi was valuable because of the writing. But 4 months later, we went to a different state, Gujarat, and there was another language that they spoke there. So we had to start from the beginning again. But the whole process was really beautiful. And we must say that the children helped us a lot. In our specific case, every night we would sit down with the children and they would teach us new words. We tried to learn as quickly as possible. Our experience was just for 1 year. So the better you speak the language, the better you will be able to communicate with people. If you can't speak with them, obviously that's a problem. And as the second aspect of our formation, well, the professional aspect of things, as you said, I'm a veterinarian, he's a doctor. So from the professional side of things, um, you know, we read about what they needed in that area. So for example, what animals, what kind of production was there? So how could we serve, the people who we were going to be with there. And then, of course, spiritual preparation. So we had personal spiritual accompaniment, our prayer, living the sacraments. That's the basis and the most important thing to be able to transmit Jesus that we love to other places where we're sent. Well, I was will give the opportunity of this man to talk about his experience. Yesterday, he told us some beautiful stories. Sometimes the formation that we get to go to different places. Sometimes it's kind of disproportionate, the formation that you receive and what you need when you actually get there. Annie Villis, would you like to go ahead? Thank you. About that, about family, when I was a child, my family said to me that I needed to learn to live minimalistically. As a child, I didn't understand that. Later, when I was on the mission, I said thank you because they taught me to live with only the essential things. Some people know this, some people don't. So I would really like to highlight that aspect because I think this is very important. Another thing is you need to have your heart and your mind open because otherwise everything that you've studied, everything that you want, it doesn't uh, serve for anything. When I went into the community, I already had a profession. I had done a master's degree, and this helped me so much in the mission because I had studied rehabilitation. This helped me a lot. And the biggest gift that I received was that the formation, I did it within the mission. So I entered the community here in Puerto Rico, and they sent me 2 months later to Peru. And there I was on the mission, and I had the opportunity to go and study theology. So I was truly blessed because experiencing mission and community life, I had the opportunity to learn theology. And I think that that was essential because, as our sister said, you don't talk about God, you need to be prepared for this aspect of things. And then the specific field of the mission, I think that it's very important. And lately, this has really been um, gaining ground. If you're going to be a missionary, you need to study missiology because we need to be familiar with our subject. So I studied missiology in Mexico, and I'm very grateful for this experience that I had. So I think these are important aspects, taking into account the other aspects that the couple here mentioned. You need to study the word and so on, but I think that's all very important for being a missionary. And that's those are interesting points about formation. Formation is action, and action is forms you. Okay. Well, we have someone else here who can tell us his experience about being a witness to Christ. Yes, thank you very much. Well, as a priest, people might think that everything is very structured. So the formation, uh, what people want as a priest, the formative processes, um, philosophy, theology, and so on. But I've said, apparently, because the experience of the feel the place of mission, you learn to unlearn because the experience of direct contact with people, where you enter the space, but this ends up being this continuous formation that never ends. I spent 15 years in Kenya. I was working in three different missionary spheres. So first I was with the Maasai community, and then I was in an urban center, and then I did a special pastoral activity, which was with the deaf community. Each one of those different spheres in the transition between these different realities, different people with different realities. There was a new formation that was required of me. I needed to delve deeper into the knowledge of a new world where I had to allow myself to be led by the people. I think that the formation in mission consists of not so much, what I received, I'm going to give it to them and teach them. No. Sometimes people think that that's what the mission is. It's unidirectional. I'm going to learn something and then I'm going to teach it to you. I think that it's actually about taking on the cause of the people and allowing yourself to be motivated by the people's church. So a church in the Maasai style, a church with an urban face, a church with the face of a person in the deaf community. It was a school in which I had to learn. They taught me. There were times, there were significant experiences that perhaps in another opportunity I'll be able to share with you, on the personal level. But really, it was a school in which you sweat, you cry, and you are filled with passion because they teach you when you show that your heart is interested in getting involved with them, traveling with them. It's very surprising how they allow you to build a church with them. That's what formation is. Wow. I'm really deeply impacted by the words of these witnesses. Sister Maria Luisa, today, you really moved us because you come from an Asian country. So let us know, how did you prepare for that, for what you've done? Well, I think that the first aspect where God has trained me and vocation has trained me, really it has been in my life. It has also been in my interpersonal relationships because mission is an encounter with God and with other people. So why in life? Well, because mission is service. Mission is done according to others. When I entered into the missionary life, I was only 20 years old. If you can imagine what I knew, I didn't even know how to cook. I didn't know how to wash. I didn't know anything in life. But I ended up graduating. I finished my degree. The degrees are shorter. They're done in fewer years. So I graduated from accounting. So I had to do mathematics, numbers, but not really service to life. So yeah, I think I was taught that life is worth a lot. So much courage. Um, it's about, giving a glass of water to someone, being attentive, asking, can I sit here? Make that person exist. For me, that is extremely important as a formation in the mission. There was a greeting. This morning, I taught you how to greet someone in India. There's a greeting from Southern Africa, Saunabe. And what does that mean? Well, when I say that word Saunabe, I make you exist. I tell you that you exist and you are worth so much in the world. I think that that is very important. I think that when someone is born selfish, individualistic, um, or only living for personal needs within a small world, well, when you've done that, living for other people isn't easy. But really, I had to renounce myself, and that was like things were taken away. But formation centered on Christ has helped me a lot.
Then I also studied the theology. I did a bachelor's in theology, and this really helped me because it really consolidated my faith, my knowledge of God, the doctrine of the church, and also in the knowledge of the church and of man. And I think that all this knowledge, this strong formation is important. One of the challenges is that we want to be doing the work immediately, being with our brothers and sisters. But it's necessary to have formation before we do that. As Father Francis says, formation is an artisanal work that forms us from within. The theological preparation is an inner preparation that strengthens our heart, strengthens our minds, so that we can truly get to know Christ. Because ignorance of Christ is ignorance of the writings, ignorance of the writings is ignorance of Christ. So it's important to truly know Christ, to get others to know Christ in mission. So it was a change of perspective from my mind and my heart to be able to be missionary. Yesterday, we saw that there were many questions from the room. Since we saved 5 minutes, we can add 5 minutes to the question period. So we'll ask Kenya to facilitate the question period. So if anyone here has a question, you can go to the microphones. It can be a question directly on the conversations we've been having, but also if you have questions on other things, ask whatever question you might like. Please don't jump to the microphones all at the same time. Don't be shy. One question. At the moment Are the opportunities for evangelization uh, easily present, easily there, or do you have to create them, or how do you do evangelization? I was part of a small group that went to Thailand to open the mission and to go there and to not know anyone and to not know anything of the country we're going into. We don't even know where to start. But as I said, in mission, practical formation is incredibly important. I integrate the social circle I'm in. If I'm in the rural area, I go with the farmers to go and work with them. I go into the kitchens with the women to help them prepare breakfast. Or I go to the schools to chat with the students. If there's a group of workers, I sit down to chat with them. Mission starts with friendship. It doesn't start from up top. Mission, as our sister was saying, is something very simple. And that's where we start the mission, not from the university. Just something that occurred to me that I wanted to share with all of you. We do formation to welcome and receive the Holy Spirit, and the Holy Spirit uses our formation. Maybe this was already answered in a way, but experiences in Kenya and Ethiopia, some missionary congregations could bring missionaries that weren't for pastoral work or for specifically to speak about the Word of God, but for practical things. Some were carpenters and this and that. So people who had different professions without necessarily having any formation in catechesis or anything like that. But they found it so difficult on the ground. My question is whether that could be done from our Latin American countries, because it is financially very difficult, because it seems to me that it's only the countries of the north who can do it. Or I think that we need to think of missionaries without the pastoral formation, with just professional formation. If you'll allow me, we had that experience. Before I went to India, I went to Angola in 2004, and we were the first group of Argentinians from our spirituality to go to Angola after 25 years of war. They opened up to missionaries and cooperation. So we could see there that in Latin America, we had people from Brazil, Uruguay, and Argentina, many vocations with different types of formation, but we didn't have enough money for a plane ticket. So what we did was a triangulation. Countries in Europe who might have more money but fewer vocations would give the money so that Latin American countries with more vocations but without any financial means could go. So it was a collaboration to find a way, if there are people who are willing by discernment to go and mission, that money may not be an obstacle. And there are places where they have the financial resources, but without having the grace of having the vocations. So I think that that's one way of doing it. And in our case, it was quite specific. Some people went who were tradespeople, who were carpenters, who were other things. I went as a doctor, others went as philosophy professors, many different things. The mission is really a place where both things can go together. In the cultures, we find the seed of the word. How have you found the seed of the word in the different cultures you've been? Thank you. I truly like that question. I love it because it's one of the things that we study when we study theology is the seed of the word. And to me, in Burkina Faso, I'm always amazed at the value that they have towards life, the respect of the children, the respect for life. And I can say that the Catholic Church that has, it's not the Catholic Church that has brought this concept of respect towards life. No, it is a value that comes from the culture. So it's wonderful to me to see this value, the value of the respect for the person, to say that person has value just because she exists and she's a person, and then spirituality, and then we can purify certain aspects, but in the initial sense it's beautiful to see how there is this spirituality, this reflection, and there we realize that God has already uh, done some work. In my experience, to discover the presence of the verb in the culture was this: to meet adults, grown ups who want to get to know God without having any kind of religious formation. For example, I prepared a person who wanted to get baptized. So I went through the catechism process, and this person was 32 years old. And I said, "Why do you want to get baptized?" And he told me, when I was very little, I was just starting to learn how to read. My mother was taking me to school, and I walked by a Protestant church, and outside, God is love. And I thought, I was 7 years old. I thought, God? But in Buddhism, they were all Buddhists in Thailand, but in Buddhism, God doesn't exist. We don't have God. So, does God exist? And to me, that is the presence of the word, the verb in people, or to see how others have survived their faith in the Christian Catholic sense without having the elements to survive. A person who is 35 or 40 years old was a farmer in the north of Thailand. He was baptized when he was very young because his parents were Catholic. In the northern part of the country, there were no Christians. So he it was him and his whole family who was Buddhist. And I said, how did you survive to this? And he said, you know what? My faith survived through the prayer of the Our Father. And that's what we call the verb present in culture, in the culture. That's a very good question, because to discover God in these other cultures, we need to have a contemplative perspective. I remember through my mission in an interfaith university, so there were Muslims, There were also Buddhists. And I don't know if you saw the picture during my presentation with the youth. They're from the Interfaith University. Some have no faith, also, some are atheists. And we managed to find ourselves to get together, but with a great openness. What happened in that interreligious uh, gathering or this space? We discovered that it's not a question of discovering the difference of, oh, you're a Buddhist, you're a Muslim, you're a Christian, you're from this sect or another, and I'm a Catholic. That's not the idea, but rather to see what kind of Buddhist, Christian, atheist, Muslim, or Catholic person am I? I can, for example, give priority. Do I want to put my religion, my faith, my beliefs over love? If we choose to look at love first, those seeds of life, those questions come out. We always have to start from the questions that people have and to accompany them in searching for responses to these questions. And when they find a small light, it's not always a full answer, an absolute answer, but if they find a small light, they're open to more communion, more conversation, although we are from very different cultures. Thank you. I'm Antonio from Venezuela. I've been a bishop now for 4 months. Congratulations. Thank you. Others have given their condolences. First of all, I'd like to thank God for his yes, but for your yes, but also for your witness. Now, I don't know if my question will be a bit controversial, but I'd like you to answer. What would you tell a bishop so that we can have the seed of mission grow? Because most of you said that it was born in your family, it was born in a consecrated community or around a spirituality in the case of the Salesians, but I think that it should be wider. The local church that should form and animate. The bishop is the first animator of the diocese. So, not on a theoretical level, but from your experience. Before you answer that question, I would like to mention that the reason and the objective, the specific objective of our Congress is to have recommendations for the churches, for the local churches, for the animation, formation, and for creating this missionary seed. Open the door to the lay women and men. It is the time of synodality because the religious have a whole process of formation that accompanies them in their vocation. But there are tons of missionary vocations in the streets, but we don't have the information or the accompaniment in certain dioceses. So the first thing I would say as a layman is let's open the doors so that they can have the information and they can feel the vocation and they can live their vocation as missionaries. I think that from what we've reflected of the life of the Agentis mission is something that is an important horizon for the church. It is an important paradigm, but the risk is precisely when it isn't anymore, when it doesn't move us to go out, when maybe the structure, and Pope Francis has mentioned this many times, that are structures that are so rooted that they're not thinking and going beyond and going further. When we face this situation, it's time to rethink things. And one of the ways to do so is to change within the formation the paradigms, to say that the church by nature is missionary and it must be lived in such a way. Personally, I've faced experiences in my country, in Mexico, where the missionaries of Guadalupe are born from a Mexican institute, and that was in 1949, and now we're 65 years later with this idea of saying, yes, Mexico wants to respond and send missionaries. But now, after 75 years, we face realities in which the Pharaoh meets Joseph, and where there isn't that support anymore. But rather, when we want to go into the diocese to promote vocations, particularly at Gentis, there are certain mentalities that say, no, why would you go all the way over there? There are many, many needs here in my diocese. Yes, of course, people also need help, and that will always be the case. But the problem of the paradigm is that sending people a mission at Gentis doesn't remove locally but adds. And I had a great experience in Colombia. I know that there are many Colombians here, but there was a diocese in Colombia where it was very interesting because the bishop sent a group of seminarists who were doing their theology year to Kenya. And the vision of the bishop was this: the experience that they will have, these future priests for my diocese, I am sending them to an experience of mission, change of culture, change of language, change of perspective of what church is. They'll come back different and they'll bring so much more to the church. So they sent them not thinking they were losing resources, but that it was bringing more. There are missionary institutes amongst many, like mine. Missionaries of Guadalupe has associate missionaries, for example. There are institutes who have that experience. Dioceses can work with these missionary institutes, open the doors, and say, let us send some some priests, maybe an Adventist mission for some time, but then they come back transformed. So we're going to end this first part and move on to the second part, but I have the microphone, so I can't avoid the temptation of asking my own answers. So I'd like to say two things. In our Diocese of Caguas, and this is really helpful when we share experiences, in our Diocese of Caguas, after a discernment process, the vicar is a vicar of not only the pastoral side of things, but also the mission. It needs to all come together. So it needs to be of mission and pastoral work. And there is a course on missiology that is given by lay people. And the coordinator is a lay person. And we can talk about it further if you'd like. I know that there are still other people who wanted to ask questions, but there will be a second round of questions from the public. So write them down so that you remember them and you can ask them later. Now, I know that listening to all these witnesses would also like to add something. Maybe you would like to say something about how to respond to these challenges and what recommendations you might have. So there's a QR code that you can use if you want to add your input. Maybe not with the microphone asking a question here in the room, but maybe you want to give your input through this QR code. And I'll invite Erika to help us close this first part of the conversation. And it is important to stay open to the Holy Spirit who guides us and is the protagonist of the mission. This song is very easy, and I would like you to sing with me. It is the fire that burns in charity. It is fire that embraces in charity. I'll tell you that I have a doctorate in theology, and I am convinced this afternoon that I need to unlearn, and that in my heart there's this great desire to go beyond. We'll start the second block by changing languages. You might need your interpretation set to be able to understand Portuguese, so it is now.
So I'm director of pontifical works in Brazil, Sao Paulo, and today we have this theme, right? And through this discussion, there's one affirmation that really resonated with me. When we listen to all these testimonies, it's important to always think about beauty. It's beautiful. It's amazing to be a witness of Christ. And I think that what we've heard this afternoon also confirms that it's beautiful to be a witness of Christ. In these different testimonies, the aspect of formation is essential. And before I ask the next question, I'd like to share a little bit about my own experience. I was a missionary for 8 years in Cameroon, in Africa. And I see myself a lot in what you've said about the formation process. My experience was that I prepared a lot before going to Cameroon. I wanted to go so bad. I prepared, I studied, I learned French. I learned it properly, and I when I got there, I was prepared, and the impression I got is that when I got there, all of this preparation I used for very little time. Actually, it wasn't really as useful as I thought. So I do think that formation is important, as everyone mentioned. It is fundamental. However, it is also just as fundamental as many have said here to learn, to unlearn, to be able to receive formation again based on the reality that welcomes us. So yes, we need formation. We have to prepare seriously and do it with sacrifice, because a good, serious formation asks this. It's hard. You need to be dedicated, yes, but you also have to be open and flexible so that you can receive people. You can receive something from the people that are ready. What's the question for us, for our people now? So still about formation.
Quel type d'accompagnement, what type of accompaniment do we need from the church? J'ai plus le relais. Pourquoi c'est quoi que j'ai fait? The interpreter apologizes for the glitch. There is a technical problem with interpretation. We apologize. No. I have nothing. Because for us, on radio,
Okay. He's a man, a brother, a pastor. He visited the houses of religious communities with his seminarians so that they could learn to speak with different congregations and of different realities of those congregations. He was a very accessible man. He is a very accessible man, very down to earth. And for us, the bishops we've had, at least in my time, have been pastoral figures who were very integrated in the reality of the world, who accompanied. And so he accompanied us not only spiritually, retreats, calling us to find out how we're doing, but he also accompanied us materially, because he gave us the possibility to have a house at Caritas. The Verbum Dei missionaries were offered a house, and he came to visit us there often. So Cardinal Tagle, you've probably heard him give a speech or a presentation. He always gives examples of encounters with people. His theology is a lived theology, a theology based in experience with the people, speaking to the people, involving himself with the people. And his example for us is a great richness, a great attraction. We need leaders who are in and amongst the people and who stop sacramentalizing the faith. Celebrating Mass, wonderful. Celebrating the sacraments, wonderful. But I also think we need bishops, leaders of the church, who are real pastors as well, integrated into the and in and amongst the people. This issue of accompaniment has so much personal resonance for me. I feel like I'm part of my local church. I feel it's the diocese that has sent me the Puerto Rican church who accompanies me, and that's why I'm here. It was the Puerto Rican church who invited me to participate in this event. That's why I'm here. If I belong to a community, a missionary community, which has the responsibility to form me, to send me, and to receive me, and I appreciate this. Wherever the community is my home, but we also talk about accompaniment of the church because we belong to the church. The sending out of missionaries is never personal. I'm not I don't send myself and I'm not received by someone random over there. No, I'm sent by the church and I'm received by the church. And so that accompaniment has to start with me. I have to represent the church. I am on mission, and it is my responsibility to maintain contact with the bishop. My bishop, my responsibility, and the responsibility of all missionaries. It's important that the church know that I'm going, and I'm going because I was sent by someone. This is very important. The issue of accompaniment, which must be an accompaniment of collaboration. That's what sustains us in the mission. There are always moments, when one has to get down on one's knees and pray. The terrorists are coming, we're being attacked. But it's the support, the accompaniment is material because you can't live on nothing. You need an income. You need, if someone wants to support a missionary economically, if I feel sustained and supported by my parish, by my church, that contributes to generosity. And it's also an accompaniment where you make yourself present. How how are you? How are you do? How are you doing? What are you doing? What are you not doing? And also who allows the mission to be a living mission. I communicate and put it in communion with others. Yes, I think that behind the desire to respond to a missionary vocation is a person. I was not alone. There were many hands. You mentioned this, the family, other people on my path who supported and answered my questions, my doubts. All of these hands, it's the church really that sent me, all of those hands that came into my story and molded who I am and my missionary vocation. And when I arrive at a church that receives me, I am always so grateful, very grateful to have encountered churches who share what I experienced in my missionary formation. When I started my first missionary experience with the Maasai tribe, in Kenya, I was very fortunate to encounter an institute, a formation institute that specifically teaches how to be in mission with a nomadic people. They teach you the language, the cosmovision of the Maasai, because they are a very specific indigenous people and they have their own cosmovision as semi-nomadic people. And this institute was a real oasis because there was a systematization. When I found out about the origins of this institute, it's very interesting. It was someone who had written the grammar of Kimasai, and in his years of missionary work, he didn't remain inside himself. Uh, he became a tree who provided shade to many, and at the feet of that tree, one is nourished. Before entering the School of Theology, there was an institute that was providing formation and training on African cosmovisions, and I wanted to study that before theology, and that was also a great richness. And when I found out about that institute and who founded it, they were the Maryknoll missionaries who, over many years of missionary life, systematized their experience to share it with the church and with the new missionaries who arrived in the area. When I worked with the deaf, there was nothing. I learned sign language on the street. A deaf person taught me in the street. We sat down on the bench in the street and he taught me sign by sign, word by word. And he didn't only teach me the language, that deaf person brought me to the world of the deaf, the culture of the deaf, that marginalized, invisible world that many of us don't see. Our churches, we think that are all of our interlocutors here. And often in our midst, there are deaf people, and we don't even realize, and we don't offer the service to them of their language. And so this deaf person took me to the other deaf people, and we founded this pastoral work with deaf people for the entire archdiocese. And now we have a school in which we teach sign language. We teach. We have an interpretation school to offer this pastoral ministry to deaf people. So there have been missionaries before us who have come before us who didn't keep their own knowledge within. They shared it and they provided shade to future missionaries as a tree does. Well, we as lay people, the dynamic is a little bit different when it comes to accompaniment. In our particular case, we were able to have the grace of experiencing things in groups of two. We always say there are three of us because there's the two of us in our marriage and there's Jesus as well with us. It's very Trinitarian. And the first being who accompanied me before, during, and after the experience was my wife. Feeling the same, knowing that you're with someone who feels the same way as you do, it's not necessary, it's not essential, but it is a great gift. We arrived from different contexts. We left during, we met during our walking on the path of life. And as Agentes missionaries, when we were discerning whether to get married, during our courtship, we were already talking about doing this missionary work. It was very important, this relationship, once we were in India, in the land of mission. And then another challenge we had was with First Peoples, Indigenous peoples. Accompaniment is fundamental. In our case, that's how it happened. We have the grace of closing the circle now, because we accompany new missionaries, young people, in our Salesian charism, listening to their doubts, their uncertainties, using social media and other means to make sure they feel supported. The church in Argentina has also supported us in our work in the north. The bishop has supported us. He was not uh, a diocesan. He came from Spain, and he gave his support also for us to come here to Camp 6 in Puerto Rico. So we felt, these two from Formosa who went to India, let's pray for them. So support in the land where we go to do the mission. But another thing that's very important is spiritual cooperation. We feel, as the sister said, truly needing to share our witness. We feel truly supported by people, by friends, by family, by people we don't know who prayed for us in more than one opportunity. When we were in danger, we know that prayer saved us, at least in one situation. Another situation of a health challenge. And finally, the young people, the children. One of the aspects of our pastoral work was to share with 150 children, indigenous children, living in uh, the center where we worked, how to act, what to say, what not to say, what gestures are appropriate, what aren't. We learned this from children. Uh, a child came up and told me and said, "Don't look at a woman in this particular way in this culture because it's seen as insulting and you'll get yourself in trouble." So you see, little children can teach us a lot. In India, there's the caste system, which is very cultural. They're the untouchables, and we had a closeness with them, could touch them, could feel that we could accompany them and be accompanied by them. So it's always mutual. In my experience, in the local church, for example, the local Mexican church, where we are integrated as a congregation, we don't have a lot of support. But the congregation accompanies us, sustains us in the mission, and receives us here. But the experience I had was that the bishop where we arrived in the north of Thailand, he was very generous and very attentive to what we were doing and what was happening to us. Even with the small groups, they're called groups who are sympathetic with the gospel because they're not Christians per se, and he would accompany us for 15-day stints to visit them. And we're talking about 7-8 hours by car. He would come for 2 weeks with us to visit these sympathizing groups who sympathize or empathize with Christianity. And when we had created a group and he saw how we were working in our mission at the beginning, when we arrived, he said, "How do you do it? You don't have hospitals, you don't have churches. How do you do your work?" And then once he saw the kind of work we were doing concretely on the ground, he said, "You know what? I don't want you here because here there's already a small group of empathizers with Christianity. I want you in another area where there is no parish, where there are no Christians, and where there are no empathizers with Christianity." And he said, "To do this, I'm going to lend you a house that that had previously been a hospital for people with HIV/AIDS. I'm going to give you a truck and a car for you to get around." And he also gave us an economic contribution every month. And so he always supported us. And that's something very valuable, this kind of collaboration. I really enjoyed it. This was in the north of Chiang Mai, the Bishop Francisco Javier. But I've also seen that other particular churches, uh, aside from the experience of our own congregation, have nice preparation in place for lay people who are going to go off on the mission. And I want to congratulate some of these initiatives. For example, in the French church in France, or the Brazilian church, they accompany very well their lay people who are being sent out on the mission. They're prepared, formed, accompanied. They are called. Have you eaten? Have you slept? And when they come back, they do missionary animation in their own diocese, which encourages new missionary vocations. And this is truly marvelous. I congratulate all these dioceses who are concerned for sustaining and maintaining this relationship with them and animating their local church when they come back.
We can see the importance of all those relationships. The missionaries that help others to make sure their knowledge contributes to the wealth of everyone. So I would like to remind you of what has been said. I think we have to highlight how in this formation process, experience is fundamental. The experience that we have becomes a contribution to others' training. Yesterday, we said that life is a theological reflection object. Life can also become a formation that can be offered to others. We thank you for everything you said. We will now take your questions about this theme and any other questions you would like to ask.
English anymore. Oh. I'm from Panama. I enjoyed each of your testimonies from your different points of view as lay people, as a priest, as couple, and from that, from your point of view, what is lacking? What is still needed in our communities so that there can be more missionaries who are prepared, formed, and committed to the mission of the church? Before answering, I'm asked to tell you, perhaps the interpreters can help, please don't eat or drink in the theater. It's quite a strict rule. We ask, please, to show respect for this rule. We were allowed to use this space because we agreed to not eat or drink here. That is the rule, please. Thank you. Can you repeat the question? Because we were distracted by the thought of the sandwich we were about to eat, and now we can't eat. So can you, yes, what is missing, what is lacking in our churches, in our particular churches, to animate others and attract others to the mission, and that they commit themselves to the mission? How do we engender or encourage that commitment? Me again, I think that one thing that happened to all of us, we talked about this yesterday, feeling one's heart being freed, opening up when we heard somebody else's testimony. So just open spaces where people can hear what other missionaries experienced, lived, what they struggled with, what their challenges were, what made them happy. We the support of the sister, her passion, you could feel it. It was palpable in the room, and there were people, we could tell they were saying to themselves, "I'm going, pick me, I'm ready." So we need to open those spaces to hear the testimony of missionaries. That will inspire others to come to the mission. Good afternoon. My name is Jose Rivera. I'm a layperson. Based on my experience, I have the following question. Given that you all have so many years of experience and have traveled to many places in the world, how can I achieve what I have to do, what I need to do to get not only the support of the church, it's a reality. We often that it's not there, uh, so that lay people who join with me in the mission don't become discouraged when they see that they're not receiving the support they need. What is the right thing? How do I express myself? I don't get discouraged. I try not to get discouraged. I've been on the mission. This fills me up. What I do, this service, but how do I help others, other lay people who want and are involved in service in the mission, and when they see that there isn't support from the church, how to persevere? Yes, I think. Thank you for the question. Thank you for your service and your interest in the mission. We can't generalize because it's not the entire church. None of us would be here if there weren't parts of the church supporting us, but it's very important to inform yourself, to know who in the country you're going to, who supports the missions, who sustains them, who accompanies, and that's a starting point. You'll always find someone that way, even if it's just one church in a parish, or a powerful bishop who wants to help sustain the mission. Anywhere in the world, you'll find that one person, or an institution that can help with formation, that can help with motivation, etc. So I think this is very important because we have to renew the network of contacts. We talk about all the technological tools we have at our disposal, but even amongst ourselves, we are convinced that the church is missionary by nature, but we need to provide ourselves with tools and with networks, and that's what's going to sustain us and allow us to continue to be animated, to continue to be motivated, and to persevere. Yes, I also want to answer this question.
I think that it is very important to rediscover the role played by missionary work. The, that's what they are here for. They are here to animate local churches, to encourage them to take their missionary responsibilities. That's what missionary works are here for. We have to rediscover the role they can play.
The national church and the hidden church in China is a complicated issue. Every particular church and local church would have to have an openness to receive, to welcome people from elsewhere, to feed themselves, to be nourished by the faith. They were so glad to receive the formation, to be offered this formation, to be with people of faith. They were jumping with joy and crying with emotion, and said, "Here in our land, we can't have what you have here, which is such a great privilege. We have to hide where we live. And when there's a little opening, there we enter, but with fear. But here, you have such a great privilege. You can sing and dance and jump and celebrate your faith openly. Truly, we have to open ourselves more to these groups that don't have sufficient support, uh, to animate, to provide enthusiasm and perseverance in their faith and in their mission. This is a question: how how do we carry the mission to your day-to-day lives? How do you enrich the lives of your loved ones, your brothers and sisters, your parents? My brother was a priest, and he never let go of my hand through my childhood, through my adolescence, and he was always there with me, accompanying me. How do you bring this richness to your loved ones, those close to you, this richness of your missionary lives? I think that missionary experience uh, is not just in the private sphere. You can't cut yourself into my pastoral life here, my home life here. Uh, you know, there are, of course, distinctions to be made, but the way of being, the way you experience God, you can't only share with places and with people who you think know that you are a missionary. The beautiful family experience you share in your own family with your brother, who was able to live it in that way as well. That is a true witness. I think the experience of everyone here who has told their personal story has dealt with different realities, but I am convinced of the fact that we can't separate these or put them in silos. And then there's another point. I'm speaking personally for myself. When you express, when you have the experience of being a missionary, what does it mean to leave things and people behind, your family, your other contacts, acquaintances, friends? Uh, you have this process of renouncing, of leaving behind. Your family also goes through that process, and it's very beautiful then.
When your mother and father can finally express to you and say, "We let you go, son." Good afternoon, Santa Marta from the Dominican Republic. My question has to do with the answer that we just received. Families don't always have the maturity of faith to really accept that one of their family members is going to be a missionary. In your particular cases, what has your experience been with your families? When I wanted to join the convent and become a missionary, first of all, they didn't believe me. That was the first thing. They just didn't believe me. But I am someone who, when I want something, I want it, and I want it deeply. So eventually they saw that I was serious, and my mother got very upset, and she would no longer speak to me. She thought that if I did that, well, that her daughter was going to go to the convent and disappear. But that wasn't how it went. I joined the convent. For a long time, she didn't speak to me. It was years. And then when she had the opportunity of being with me for 2 months. She lives in the US. She had to wait for a couple of months to get her visa. But during that period of time, we didn't know, how things were going to be. When she left, she said, "Daughter, now I am happy because I know that you are happy. The mission makes you happy." So families change. They change. At some point, they feel negative towards it, but when they see that their family member feels fulfilled in what they chose to do, what they like about the mission, because she always said to me, "You like hard life." And I said, "Well, yeah, I like hard life. What do you want me to say? If I see that in that hard life you're happy, well, God bless." We have time for one more question. But those of you who are standing and those of you who were sort of hesitating, going back and forth, uh, let's say, you can ask your question now, or you can write it down. Ask the secretary. You can write it down on a little piece of paper that the secretary will give you, and you can direct it towards one of the members on the panel. It's very important that you write your email address clearly so that the member of the panel that you have your question for can answer you. So, last question. All right. So methodologically, the conversation is a starting point to continue the discussion. I'm not sure if it's one or three. At some point, people ask me, what am I doing here? I mean, out in the field on mission. And whether it was an excuse or whether there was some motivation or, how the Holy Spirit consoled you. So the question is, how did you experience your itinerance, and what counsel would you give us? What advice? It's a doctoral thesis. That would be excellent for a book, no? Well, I think the first question had to do with the aspect of difficulty. Often you ask yourselves, what and who put me here? And you have to analyze what you're experiencing. And oftentimes, like with so many things in life, you have to choose. You have to evaluate. But at a personal level, I can say that uh, being in Africa, and as a missionary, I think it was my biggest missionary, when I would go to visit the small communities, you might be alone for days, and it was moving for me. I often cried because I was asking myself, what am I doing here? And I have heard, with my desires, I've heard God speak to me about my desires. Um, and I say, to my mother, if I wouldn't have come here if God hadn't sent me here. So it's the perplexity of wonder, of emotion. So I think, I would never have been able to go to these places if I hadn't been a missionary. So there are these difficulties. I ask myself, who put me here and who's going to take me out of here? It'll be the same one who puts you there will take you out of there. But it's really a lot of wonderment and gratitude, because you end up being put where you are needed. Wonderful. So thank you to each and every one of you for your presence, for all of the questions that you have asked. There is still an opportunity for you to write your questions down. Now, let's remember that tomorrow we are not going to come back here. You've had your conversation. Don't say, tomorrow, Friday, you are going to be in Agenti's projects and experiences at the table for dialogue. So consult your QR code on your card, your ID card, to see where it is that you're supposed to be. So once again, want to share with you the QR code. As Father Jorge told us, this is the beginning of a conversation. This is a conversation that will continue, and we want to hear from you through this QR code so that you can, make a contribution, something that has emerged in your heart. can contribute to the final document from this Congress. Also, remember the faces of all of these people. If you see them at lunch or whatever, you can go up to them. We're a family, so you can continue the conversation. So also, it's been requested that we do a selfie. It's going to be that in that direction. So everyone stand up, everybody, smile, and we're going to take a photo of the whole group. Everybody crouch down a little bit. One, two, three. I'm not in the picture. Thank you for being here. Thank you to the missionaries.